I love Kyoto Animation. What a surprise you may say with a look at this abusing. But it's kind of mandatory to praise Kyoto Animation. From Fumofu to Violet Evergarden, the studio managed to keep a consistent greatness over the years. All of that thanks to a model of management every studio should take the example of. In this video, I'm gonna explain how a couple founded the best anime studio nowadays. And you will see that they understood the most crucial point to succeed in this industry. The story of Kyoto Animation began in Tokyo in 1965. Taku Sugiyama was an animator at Mushi Production, and one day his sister Yoko wanted to work in animation and asked him for a job. Yoko managed to get a job as a painter for Mushi Production. Back in the day, the studio produced famous works like Astro Boy and Dororo, but despite that, Mushi Production would go bankrupt in 1973. After a dismissal, Yoko moved to Kyoto Prefecture. Here she married Hideaki Hata, an accountant from a railroad company in 1975. And despite being a happy mother of three, Yoko wanted to come back to work. So she asked Taku if he had some contacts in the area. And he will. So Yoko will then meet Daichiro Kusube, the president of Shinhan Animation, to become a painter again. After obtaining the job, Yoko set up her company. With some neighborhood housewives, they painted frames for the studios, and rapidly their hobby has become a side job. At last, Yoko settled down Kyoto Animation for good in 1985. At this period, KyoAni was doing a great job at frame coloring. But the studio has a weak point. Its location. The anime industry lives in Tokyo. All significant corporations, studios and workers are in the capital for convenience reasons. Animators can find work easily thanks to the nearby studios, and these companies can reach animators to take their frames. Because of the location, KyoAni doesn't profit from that. Kyoto may be a beautiful city, but anime workers won't move here because of the lack of job opportunities. So for Hada, the note is clear. If no animators wanted to move to Kyoto, the studio will make their own ones. Right after the establishment of Kyoto Animation, the Hadas focused on their main task, compose a team with people without any prior experience. So the company not only needed a studio, but also an academy to train them from scratch. Yoko may have experience in coloring and her brother in animation, but it won't be enough to cover all the areas, so they needed someone with experience to take care of the training center. Hopefully for them, an animator from Shinhan Animation called Yoshiji Kigami came to the rescue. But Kigami wasn't any animator. He was considered by his peers as a genius. Rumors even said there is nothing he can draw. In the 90s, Kyoto Animation set up its company, with Kigami as the main lecturer. Thanks to him, the Kyoto Animation Pro course will release the biggest names of the studio, like Naoko Yamada, Yukata Yamamoto, and Taishi Shidate. But at start, the studio just set up a workforce to handle the projects. At first, KyoAni will still do the same work as usual, subcontracting tasks. But at some point, KyoAni wanna handle the production of an anime, and the studio will have the opportunity to do so. In 2003, the publisher Kadokawa will give the production of Fullmetal Panic Fumofu to Kyoto Animation. The studio was excited by this opportunity, but it also had the pressure of succeed, because a failure would have hurt the reputation of the studio and its finances in the process. And unfortunately for KyoAni, the production didn't go as expected. In fact, the studio didn't have enough staff to meet the deadlines. Exceed the deadline is the greatest sin you could ever make as a studio, because if you do, the TV channel must change their whole programming. That's why animators sometimes sacrifice the quality to deliver the episode in time. But this is not what did KyoAni. Like I said before, it was their first project, and this first experience will follow them for a long time. So KyoAni gave the production of 4 entire episodes to Studio Tatsunoko. Yes, it still was a small admission of failure, but that was the price to pay to maintain the overall quality of the show. But despite that, KyoAni will accomplish the mission, and with the way. Fumofu was a remarkable success, exceeding all expectations. After all, the studio transformed the spin-off into a masterpiece that's shadowing the original work. With this success, more anime companies wanted to work with Kyoto Animation. At this point, most studios would accept all the projects they received. They wanna strike the iron when it's hot to make cash as fast as possible. Not because of greed, but because the competition is very high. But often, studios accept too many projects while having a limited staff, so it leads to a decrease in their standards. Or even worse, privilege some projects above others. Even if it's unfortunate, studios have to accept many projects to survive. But this is not what did KyoAni. To manage many projects at the same time would hurt the staff, and if it was the case, producers won't accept the standards anymore. So the studio made the choice of producing fewer projects than the competition. Kyoto Animation made 62 works in 40 years of existence. In comparison, A1 Picture almost made 100 works in 15 years. If KyoAni managed to do that, it's thanks to its strong relationship it got with two companies, the publisher Kadokawa and the TV channel TBS. All of the three won in this partnership. Since the studio is doing a great job, Kyoto Animation became a seal of quality for Kadokawa and TBS, and in exchange for that, the studio could kick time to polish the works and even get a share of the profits. So during the 2000s, Kyoto Animation, Kadokawa and TBS will reign over the anime landscape. The studio will change successes like Haruhi, KyoAni and Clannad among my favorite works. Not only they were commercial hits, but they also became social phenomenons. At the end of the 2000s, KyoAni reached an enviable position. The studio had fame, a lot of supporters and 2 loyal collaborators. The situation seems idyllic for KyoAni. They couldn't expect better, so they should keep on. But the headers knew there was something wrong. At this point of the story, Kyoto Animation was in an enviable position. In appearance only, because KyoAni was at the bottom of the food chain. Companies regroup in production committees to finance the production of animes. Each one of them brings money to the project, and after the broadcast, they will share all the revenues generated by the anime. And of course, the more you give, the more you earn. That's why we can find rich companies like production houses, record labels, or publishers. In fact, we can find any company, except studios. Studios cannot enter into these organizations because they are often too poor, and it ends the vicious cycle. They don't have money, so they can enter into committees, so they can earn money. To escape this infernal circle, studios have only one choice: to lead these committees. So Kyoto Animation will set up their own publishing company. The goal of this establishment is clear: to publish work that will be adapted in anime later. And like the studio, Kyoto Animation will have great editorial standards. Every year since 2009, the house organized contests to have the privilege to be published. And with this competition, KyoAni won't deny its reputation. Because until 2014, no work will receive the prestigious Grand Prix. Although KyoAni decided to publish honorable mentions like Junibyo, Kyokai no Kanata and Phantom World. Of course, they will all receive an anime adaptation produced by KyoAni. With that configuration, KyoAni became independent. The studio could adapt what it wants and take full profit from it. But to keep doing that, the animes must be successful, and during the 2010s, it wasn't that great. Of course, the anime were full of great scenes as always, but they were thought to be as successful as a Haruhi or a Clannad. It seemed that the golden age was over for good. Since the first Kyoto Animation light novels adaptations failed, more and more fans became skeptical around this company. Maybe the greatest from the animes came from the original works, and not from KyoAni. That may explain why the sales of the new works didn't reach half of the Kadokawas. In this situation, most companies would shut down the department to stop the bleeding. But this is not what did KyoAni. The publishing company allowed KyoAni to control its production, plus the financials weren't in the red, so KyoAni decided to keep their possession. And it will pay off. First, Hibike Euphonium in 2015 will receive a lot of praise, especially from the otaku sphere. But the turning point for KyoAni will be the release of Violet Evergarden in 2018. The anime was the adaptation of the only work which earned a Grand Prix. Added to that, Netflix got the exclusive broadcast, so expectations were high around it. But as the trailer was released, the audience was already conquered. So unsurprisingly, Violet Evergarden will be a worldwide success, and thanks to Netflix, Kyoto Animation won a lot of coverage across the globe. Many people discovered this special studio, the one which privileged quality over quantity. This was the payoff of 40 years of ballsy decisions. And the studio doesn't plan to stay here. The terrible arson may have stopped their ascension, but everyone is waiting for one thing: the return of the best of the business. In 2015, One Punch Man character designer Chisaki Kubota said the budget has no importance in the anime industry. That means that the most valuable asset of the studio is not the anime, it's the team. And Kyoto Animation understood that and did everything for it. The Hara built their academy to train the workers, they denied projects to protect them, they adapt their business model to award them, and in return, all these talents work hard for the prestige of KyoAni. Many people are saying that Kyoto Animation is the model for the industry. Yes, the model of KyoAni takes care of the workers, but it's also the riskiest strategy possible. Kyoto Animation had a lot of cost, and few animes to make it profitable, so if KyoAni failed only one anime, they could have been done. But hopefully for us, Kyoto Animation was successful thanks to its team, but also thanks to another thing. An element that gives them this rare prestige everyone loves, and wanna reach. So if you wanna find out what is this element, just click on the video on the left. And if the video isn't released yet, click on the right to subscribe to the channel to not miss it. And don't forget, anime is an art, but also a business. À la prochaine les filles.